Welcome to the Pelvic Pod. I'm Jen Bainbridge, and Continence NZ have brought me on board to have conversations that we don't have enough. The real honest ones about bladder and bowel health. So let's talk about it. Incontinence affects roughly 1 in 4 New Zealanders. That's a significant chunk of the population. But despite how common it is, most people are just not talking about it and they're not getting help. Whether it's embarrassment or stigma, I'm here to tell you that you are not alone. Continence NZ wants to genuinely change lives and flip that script, empowering people to live well, not just to manage or survive, but actually thrive. And it starts with creating space where these conversations feel normal. And where asking for help doesn't come with shame. And we're going to dive in now with Hannah Orr, who is a pelvic physiotherapist. She joined us in another episode of the podcast with endocrinologist Dr. Megan Ogilvie. But Hannah, we wanted to have you on your own again to dive a little bit deeper. Hannah, you work with people with all kinds of pelvic issues, whether it's incontinence, pelvic pain, or childbirth recovery. So many things to talk to you about today. But what sets you apart is that compassionate, no-nonsense approach that you have, and just giving people the practical strategies of things that they can actually do. And then, of course, that no judgment and no awkwardness. So welcome back.
Oh, thanks, Jen.
It's so good to have
great to
you
be here.
It is so good to have you here. And yeah, look, where do we start with you? Because you are doing so much to help people. But first of all, I guess the most important thing, what is pelvic health physiotherapy?
Okay, that's a good question. So simply, your pelvic floor is responsible for getting things out, so emptying your bladder, emptying your bowels, for keeping things in, so continence for your bladder and bowel, and then for sexual function, so sexual pleasure. And that's probably like your pelvic floor at the most simplest. A pelvic floor physio's job is to optimise all of those things. So to make sure that you can effectively get things out, you can empty your bowels, you can keep things in so you're not leaking when you cough or sneeze or holding your bowels in, and you can, if you want to put something in your vagina, you can, and it's pain-free, or you can enjoy sex in a pleasurable way. And I'm just helping you do all of those things.
What made you, I mean, it's kind of obvious because it's so rewarding, but what made you focus specifically on this?
Yeah,
that triggered it? Or?
That's a really good question, because most pelvic health physios come into this after having babies, because you get pregnant and then you birth the baby and you're like, I've got a pelvic floor. I got into it before I had kids, and that's because I covered a locum when I was in the UK. And I had no idea about anything pelvic floor. And so I was covering an obs and gynae ward, prolapse, lots of vaginal surgeries. And I was like, what is going on? And fascinated. And I think, like most people, grew up with very little education about bladder and bowel health, about all things pelvic health, which made it so much more interesting. So
I stopped being taught this stuff.
No, and it's so good, because the more you know, the more agency you've got, the more all of it is a lot more straightforward. It doesn't have the mystery or the kind of, I think mystery probably creates a little bit more of the shame or the the extra load that comes with the pelvis.
100%.
Yeah.
And so, we're obviously on this podcast talking about the key issue of incontinence, and that comes in many forms, as you see all the time. But, what are some of those early signs other than, again, the leakage of incontinence?
Yeah. So I think often younger kids will experience urgency. So you might get giggle incontinence early on.
Right.
Yeah. So like laughing till you wet your pants.
Yeah.
That's quite common in younger kids. And then
I never even thought about to do with kids, to be honest, in that way.
You turn the tap on and you're like, oh, I'm going to wet my pants. Can grow out of it, but sometimes you don't, and it continues to be a problem, and that becomes a bit more of your key in the door, or your I've got to go, or I get to the toilet and I cannot get my pants down, and that can be across the board. So again, it doesn't necessarily take having a pregnancy or a delivery to get there. Stress incontinence, the leaking when you cough or sneeze, again, that can affect pre-baby women. So athletes, really common to experience stress incontinence, and really important that we talk about it, because I think we often associate incontinence with having babies, and then lots of people who haven't had children experience leakage. It can affect performance. Again, you can be really shy about talking about it because you're like, I'm the only one who experiences this. But again, really high prevalence. And
so 28 years ago, I was diagnosed with a diverticulum.
Yeah.
And that was pre-baby.
Yeah. I think that's a really important.
Always need to go to the loo.
Yeah. important message to get out there, that it's not, across the board, it affects everyone. We stand on two legs with a pelvis, and our pelvic floor muscle has to work against gravity. So it is just part of being human. And so, I think that's an important message.
So yes, I can start in the kids, but for me it was, as I said, it was like I just started to notice. I was like, I'm really going to the loo a lot.
So frequency is a good one. You're going a lot. Like you can't sit through a movie, or you hop in the car and you're like, I better go to the toilet before I go. And
locating the public toilets when you're somewhere.
If you know all the public toilets.
If you know all the public toilets, the good ones, the ones that are always clean.
Yes.
I'm an expert. I'm an absolute expert. I can tell you the best lows in Auckland to go to.
So that's a good
in
sign.
The country. Actually, we've travelled the entire country.
If you're restricting your fluids, that's a good sign.
That was it's been hard work.
I can imagine.
And so, how does this continence issue affect emotional well-being, confidence in daily life? I mean, I know, but a lot of people don't.
Totally huge. I think especially once you get into the urgency symptoms, if you have to think about every toilet or where you're going to go or plan your day around the toilet, like you think of the cognitive load of that, of walking around, or having a conversation with someone's driving you and you're thinking, I'm going to need to go to the toilet soon. You can't even be present for that conversation because you're constantly thinking about your bladder. You're going into a board meeting and you're thinking, what if I need to go to the toilet midway through? So massive in terms of cognitive load. I think it's so much different to other parts of the body. If it was an ankle injury, if it was a cataract, if it was I'm walking on crutches, it's really easy to tell the person you're with, or people understand it. It doesn't have stigma around it. Bladder and bowels just are perceived as slightly smellier, like less
coarse,
less sexy. So like that creates a real aloneness and a feeling of having to hide it. If you didn't have to hide it, if you could just say, I don't have great control of my bladder and I'm going to have to go to the toilet, that would remove a huge part of the suffering.
It would.
Yes.
Isn't it weird, because it's something that every single person does, and we just it is embarrassing.
Yes.
I always apologize. So sorry, everyone. Sorry.
Yeah.
I always do it.
Yeah. But imagine if you took that part away, how much easier it would be to talk about incontinence.
So much easier. That's why I'm sitting here right now, because I want that to happen for people.
I really constantly think about that. I'm like, how could we change society so bladder and bowel is just normal? Like there just wasn't any but I guess we do it in private, so maybe it's just part of.
Yeah, I think so. And I think sometimes it sort of depends on how you were raised as well. That can come into it as well. We don't talk about those things.
Yeah.
And that can be a real problem too.
Yeah.
Absolutely, and the next question was around why people are so embarrassed, but I think that's a pretty self-explanatory, and so when people come to you, that's probably top of mind, right? They're like, oh, this is so awkward, and even though you do that every day, and you're having these conversations every day, like, oh, I'm so embarrassed,
and then I'll ask more questions, and they're like, oh,
you're going to make this worse.
Great. I know, but then it's great because if I front foot it, they're like, well, clearly other people have this issue as well.
Clearly.
Right? It's across the board. If you've got a pelvic floor, you're probably going to have experienced some degree of pelvic floor issue. You're not alone in that symptom.
So the most common things you're dealing with on a day-to-day?
Yeah, well, the most common pelvic floor symptoms are incontinence. So like 1 in 3, I think you said 1 in 4 in the intro.
But it's 1 in 3.
Well, that's the stat we often use. And then by the time you hit perimenopause, postmenopause, you're 50%. So it's really common. It is really common, and we can live with it. It is just, it is that progression. And so it's going, this should not impact your quality of life, and it's getting on top of it. And it's pretty, for the most part, it's very treatable.
And I think that's the thing people don't know, and that's why they don't do anything about it.
Yeah.
And that's why it feels grim. This is going to be forever now.
Or they're like, I'm going to go see the physio and she's going to be telling me to do pelvic floor exercises and I'm kind of doing them anyway and they're not really working. Yeah. I think we've kind of lost energy around like kind of the options and what you can do. And yeah,
that's what I was going to ask you actually. How do you do pelvic floor exercise? Because it's the whole Kegel thing, and we just the tense and we let go and tense and let go. If you could give a really quick guide to someone on what is that?
One, make sure you're breathing. So when you're doing your pelvic floor contraction, start with, am I breathing? Can I feel my diaphragm going in and out? So diaphragm going in and out, I can feel my belly moving. Start with that, because what you don't want to do is hold your breath when you Kegel. And then I'll talk you through how I teach it. People teach it very differently. So disclaimer there. I always start with the back passage, and I'll say, what I want you to do is just try and wink the back passage.
Okay.
Just a little wink on and off.
Yeah.
If you've got that, I'll then say, imagine there's a jelly bean sitting in your back passage, and I want you to squeeze around that jelly bean and lift it up and inside you.
Okay.
And then let that go.
Okay.
And then I'll check that they've got that feeling. And then I'll go, okay, I want you to now bring the vagina along for the ride. So I want you to squeeze around the back passage, but also squeeze and lift the vagina.
Doing it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now let that go.
Yeah.
And then I want you to think about the urethra. So almost visualize the urethra like a straw.
Okay.
And you are sucking water out the straw. So when you're doing a pelvic floor, you want back passage.
Everything's involved.
Yeah. Yeah.
I didn't know
Squeeze
that.
and lift.
Okay.
And then a good let go. Breathing at the same time.
Okay.
And what you don't want is a whole lot of tummy muscles contracting.
Okay.
Because what we find is lots of women, when they're contracting their pelvic floor, they'll over-contract their tummy muscles and they'll actually end up pushing down.
Right.
Yeah, we don't want that.
How often do we need to be doing these?
Good question. So if you're strengthening, it is like any other strengthening program. So you imagine you're not that fit and you want to do a marathon, and so you're going to train up for that kind of distance. You've got to progressively load, right? So the system responds. The same with your pelvic floor exercises. It takes about 3 months to get strength in those muscles. You want to be doing it kind of 5 times a week to 7 times a week.
That exercise you just showed, just once?
Yes. Oh, nope. So what you need to do is you need to work out how long you can hold it. So sometimes in the beginning you can only do like 3 or 4 seconds.
Okay.
Maybe only 1 second. So you start there and you work on repetitions. So you try and build up to 10 reps of those.
Okay.
And you try and do about 3 sets. So you're trying to exhaust the muscle. Right.
So this really is the pelvic gym, isn't it?
Yes, it is. And then, but that's the key. Like a lot of women will be like, oh, I did my pelvic floor exercises. I did them every time I was at the traffic lights, which is great, like as a maintenance, just to keep those muscles working. But a little bit isn't going to make a difference in terms of actually bulking that muscle up and getting it stronger. So you need to load it, and you need to load it progressively over 3 months. You need to do it and get out of sitting or lying and get into standing. You also 25
stand and do them.
Yes, that's when you need it. Well,
I didn't know this.
Well, if you
I
think
thought we're all sitting here doing our Kegels.
so you can do them in sitting, but if you think of like playing netball or like I don't know, going to the gym, you're not necessarily
What a revelation.
sitting. Yeah, so do them in lots of positions, and you need it. 25% of your pelvic floor muscles are actually fast twitch, so they're the quick responders.
Yeah.
We lose those the quickest as we age, so you've got to train those ones. So quick up and relax, quick up and relax. So you need to do a set of those a day. And then the other thing, and I think this is great advice as a take home, you need to use those muscles at the right time.
Yeah.
So you can have a strong pelvic floor, but if you cough and just let it relax, you're potentially going to leak.
Yeah.
So it's about using the muscle at the time you need it. So if you're lifting a weight, if you're coughing, if you're doing a jump, making sure you're
holding it.
Yeah. Which is where technique matters, because if you are an overuser of your tummy muscles and your breath holds, it's not going to be as helpful. But if you've got a nice relaxed abdominal wall and you can breathe, super effective way of helping to manage leakage.
So when I'm doing squats, because I started doing weighted squats at the gym, which I never thought I would get into in a million years.
Yeah.
So I need to be, before I'm going down, I'm breathing but holding.
Yep. So you would
And then going down,
pick up your jelly bean and
Pick up your jelly
breathe
bean.
out as you go down.
Wow,
Yep.
interesting.
And keep that on as you go up. Yeah, definitely with
That's so
squatting. So, for lots of people that might naturally happen. But again, if we've had a bit of change in our pelvic floor, we really need to think about getting those muscles.
Yeah. And so it's like, also it's remembering to do them.
Yeah.
I know at Continence, the Continence website, continence.org.nz, there's you can get a free magnet or a sticker, and so you put that somewhere where you can see it.
Yeah, put it on your fridge every time you open it.
Yeah, or maybe a reminder in your phone or something like that. It's always a way to do it as well, isn't it?
Yeah.
And so what are other simple changes that people can make today to improve their continence or pelvic health other than that?
1, sort your bowels out.
How?
So eat enough fibre, 25 grams of fibre a day, drink enough fluid, move around.
Yep.
If you get into a good bowel routine, so don't, ignore going to the toilet.
Yep.
If you've got a footstool, get a footstool. If you don't have a footstool, get a footstool. Easy.
For the toilet?
Yes,
Really?
easy. We're designed to squat.
Right.
As soon as we go into a squat, it helps to lengthen out our pelvic floor, relax, way less effort to get a poo out. You don't.
Do our legs need to be wide apart?
Yeah, if you can.
They
go,
do.
well,
So do we need a stool for each foot? Or?
double rolls of toilet paper, just make a little step.
Oh, yeah, okay.
If you haven't tried a footstool, try a footstool.
I've not tried a footstool.
Yeah, and then and as long as you're getting enough kind of fibre and your stool isn't too hard, using a footstool, I mean, I teach people how to use their tummy muscles to get a poo out, but not straining. Ideally, pooing should be just a nice, relaxing,
natural.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because straining just puts lots of load on the pelvic floor. So that's an easy fix. Around bladder habits, so just getting out of the habit of I'm just going to go just in case. Yeah. Super common. I'll go before I leave the house. I'll go when I get home.
So common.
Yeah. Your brain learns. You end up, that becomes your new normal. And then again, as you get older and your bladder's less stretchy and your muscles are less strong, now that's like every half an hour instead of every hour, and it becomes really self-limiting. So get out of those habits. Relax when you wee. Don't rush a wee. Lots of people get into the toilet, got to get this out quickly. So
Keep pushing.
Yeah. Take your time. The toilet's a great place to just stop and relax.
Chill.
Yeah. So mindful weeing.
Yeah.
Don't forget to drink. That's probably
Because that's what I used to do anyway. Limit my fluid.
Yeah.
So it's going to make me go to the toilet.
Yeah.
So, but I don't do that anymore.
Yeah. That's because again, that just becomes a vicious cycle. You end up constipated, or you end up with UTIs, and then so that would be one. And then pelvic floor. Probably my message around pelvic floor is strengthening is really important. But even if you don't have the headspace to go into a strengthening program, just learning how to use your muscles, learning where they are, learning the best way to use them, making sure you're relaxing well. Lots of us walk around with our pelvic floors tense all the time, which just kind of reflects tension everywhere else in our body because of the pace of life. So kind of learning that you're doing that and learning to relax, learning to use them when you are coughing and sneezing, like just integrating them functionally into your life is probably a really good thing to be able to do.
So where can people learn that if they can't come to see you? Let's say there's a barrier, they can't come to see you, there's no chance they can ever see you. Where can they learn that? Continence, obviously, there's so many resources.
Yeah, so they can learn how to, that's where you can learn how to do pelvic floor exercises. And I think if you're not sure you're doing it correctly, there are ways of, you could have a look with a mirror and just see that what you should be getting is a drawing in of those muscles.
That's a good tip.
Yeah, you can put your finger in the vagina, put your finger on the perineum.
Like.
Yeah. There's different tools. So in New Zealand, our Bioengineering Institute collaborated with healthcare professionals and created a device that you can put in the vagina and get a bit of feedback that you're doing it correctly. So there's different ways of accessing some information about your pelvic floor without actually seeing someone.
Yeah, right. So and so one of the most common things is people coming to you with that incontinence issue. That's the most common thing people are seeing you for.
Yes, right? I see lots of women with pelvic pain, so that's a big hunk, and I see lots of bowel issues, so not being able to get it out or not being able to keep it in, and prolapse. So I'd say I'd probably see the gamut of pelvic floor issues. Yeah.
And so what's the treatment cycle then? So whether it's the bowel or the bladder, they come to you. Yeah. They've probably been referred from perhaps an endocrinologist or a bowel specialist.
A colorectal surgeon.
And so where do you pick up and what happens from there?
Yeah, so I would always start with the bowels, and I'd be like, let's sort these out first. Because if you're constipated, you're going to find you wee more, you're more frequent.
Really?
Yes, because you can't empty your bladder as well. And plus, they're all so close together that a full bowel is going to push on the bladder.
Oh, that makes sense.
Yes. Yeah. So start with the bowel, get that emptying. You want to get things out first. So if you've got urgency with the bowels, the key is make sure you're emptying first. Empty vessels don't leak. That's one of our physio sayings. I know.
Of course, you've got a saying.
I know. So empty first.
Joke around the kitchen,
and just all your basics. Making sure you've got good stool consistency, you're eating well. Teaching people how to empty, and then it might be also pelvic floor strengthening if we think that's part of it. And then looking if there's any vaginal prolapse, having a look at that, and then
what is vaginal prolapse? Because my daughter had a baby last year, and that was a buzzword. That was a big buzzword. Everybody talking about it.
Well, there's this big space in your pelvis, basically a gap where your vagina is, and it's like a herniation of the vaginal walls. So anywhere where we have kind of gaps, we can potentially herniate, and so. There's a degree of normalness. I think if we assessed every woman, we'd be like, your vagina is, I wouldn't even call it a prolapse, is descending a bit, or there's a bit of flexibility. It's only really a problem when it gets to the kind of level of the vagina opening. So just at the vaginal opening. If you're bulging there, you'll often feel it, and it will feel like a bulging feeling. It might feel like a dragging feeling, a heaviness feeling. You might notice a lump.
Awful.
Yeah, it's like walking around with a tampon falling out all the time. So yeah, it can be a pretty horrible sensation to have. But again, quite variable. Some people can have quite significant prolapse and it's not too symptomatic, and other people just a little bit.
Does that cause bladder issues as well, or is that completely separate?
No, it can, because because that vaginal wall, your bladder sits just in front of that vaginal wall. And so if it's dropping, it can mean you don't empty your bladder as well, so then you go more often.
Right.
It can also mean you can't just you're more prone to urinary tract infections because you're not emptying your bladder as well.
Right.
Or you get a bit more urgency again because of that stretch on that bladder wall. So it can absolutely participate in bladder symptoms. And sometimes when we just lift that front wall up, so we might put a pessary in, you're now finding that you can just hold on better and you're not going so often.
What's a pessary for people who don't know?
Yeah, so that's a silicone device that basically is like, you know, the menstrual cups that you put in for your period. So it goes in the vagina in a similar way. There's lots of different types, and it just holds the walls up.
Yeah,
so it's a great option for anyone who historically has maybe seen a physio or seen a gynecologist. They've been told to go do pelvic floor exercises. They've done them and they're like, still got prolapse symptoms. Pessaries are much more commonly used now, and they're such a great way of just giving you a bit of lift, getting that prolapse up, and so you don't feel it. They're not scary. They're made of silicone. They're super flexible. Us physios teach women to take it in and out. Great. It's a great option.
Is it like a dental dam a little bit?
A dental dam?
Oh, see, that's an old-fashioned word, isn't it? What was it called? Sorry, perimenopause. Can't think of what the word is. You used to not get pregnant.
Yeah, diaphragm.
Diaphragm. Sorry,
yeah.
they used to, dental dam's another word for it. Yeah, which is a weird name considering it's down there. But is it like that?
Yeah.
It's like that. Right.
And I'll have women who are in their 70s or 80s happily getting one in and taking it out and putting one in. So anyone who's got prolapse symptoms or incontinence symptoms that feels like they've done pelvic floor exercises, it wasn't enough, they don't want surgery, consider trying. It might not work, but if it does work, game changer.
Okay, I need to try that. I've never heard of that. Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah, so we're learning. We're really learning. We're learning. We're being open. We're talking about this. It's hard, it's hard. And so you're giving the pessaries, you're giving the pelvic floor exercises. What other techniques are there that you can do? Like for example, for men who are having incontinence, what can they use? Because they obviously can't use a pessary.
No, they can use a clamp though. It's a bit easier for them actually. So men, it's often when it happens, it's post prostatectomy. So women, it tends to be this gradual thing. Like you have a baby, you're all right, and then you might get a bit. You go to the trampoline park, and you're like maybe not, and it just creeps up. Yeah. For men, often it's they get their prostate out the day the catheter's removed. It's just pouring out. Yeah. So it's a bit more sudden. So they'll do pelvic floor exercises and we'll try and see them before they have the surgery, get everything a bit stronger. They can use a clamp. Not many men want to use a clamp, but we might use it short term as a way of just improving their bladder capacity. So it's often just a short term.
Or put in?
It actually just literally clamps on the penis. But it's not. It's fine.
And it's actually all right, is it?
Yeah. Because you don't have it tight enough.
He's going to go, absolutely not.
It's not. It's only just to put a bit of gentle pressure on the urethra. Good if that's again we'd use it short term to improve kind of bladder function. Interesting. Or like they might get a bit of leakage when they're playing golf, or short term, and again, so it's a little way of managing that.
But they can also do the pelvic floor exercises.
Yes. Yeah.
How interesting.
Yeah. They really need to.
So, I mean, as we sort of draw our conversation to a close, and thank you for joining us not once but twice to talk about this topic, because there is so much to unpack with you, and I feel like we could just talk forever. What are the takeaways that you really want to get across with people?
Okay.
Other than come and see me, I can help you.
Yeah. Okay. So, if you're thinking about your pelvic floor, definitely see if you can find those muscles, see if you can locate them, get them working, and pay a bit of attention. So one thing I want you to look for is that if you're kind of holding your breath a lot of the time, or you feel like you're pushing down, be aware of that. if you can get those muscles working, try and use those muscles when you're coughing, sneezing. It's an easy kind of life hack.
Yeah, that's a great
80% of women, when they were taught in a study, when they were taught to do a Kegel, stopped leaking. A Kegel when they were coughing or sneezing stopped the leakage in that moment. Like, it's a really effective tool if you've got some muscles.
Yeah.
Some women will have sustained lots of trauma to their pelvic floor and might have very little pelvic floor muscle, in which case they might feel like pelvic floor exercises don't work. And I think that's a really important message, to not feel like you're doing something wrong or you're broken. Sometimes those just muscles have undergone quite a bit of change and they might not work very effectively. So in which case, again, if you have access, go and see someone. Don't strain when you're pooing. If you're straining when you're pooing, do something about it, whether it's just eating some more fibre. And if it is a more complicated form of constipation, like you're someone who eats lots of fibre and you still get constipated, again, seek a bit of help, because it can be simple strategies. And don't strain when you're weeing. Relax.
Yeah, that is a good one. So many people do that in a hurry, don't they?
Yeah.
Any last tips you want to leave people with? I think you have pretty much covered them all.
And then don't keep going to the toilet all the time. Like, if you are noticing that sometimes it's just a habit, and just go, do you know what? There's going to be a toilet when I get to the next place. It's okay to hold on.
It does sound like a mental game, doesn't it?
Oh, 100%.
It really is.
Yeah.
Hannah Orr, pelvic physiotherapist, you are amazing. You're such a wealth of information. I reckon we just have to do a podcast just with you, to be honest. You're great. But we are here helping people and we're continuing this conversation. So thank you so much for joining me today. I just so appreciate it.
Thanks, Jen. Great to be here.
And so, as you've heard, there are so many things that you can do to help improve and in some cases resolve incontinence issues. This podcast series is all about that. So is continence.org.nz, where there is a wealth of resources available to you. And there's a continence helpline, 0800 650 659. Talk to the team. They talk bladders and bowels all day long. They're not embarrassed to talk about it. That's what they do all day. And of course, Hannah is there, doctors are there, health professionals are there to talk to. Just reach out. Until next time, mā te wā. Take care.